Gobble gobble, bitches. Thanksgiving's right around the corner. You know what that means. Time to get fat as fuck.
Thanksgiving.
No, I'm just kidding. We don't want that to happen, and that's why today we're going to talk about holiday nutrition strategies. Let's get into it. So the first thing to establish is, what is the goal? Because if the goal is gaining muscle, well, then you're going to have a little more flexibility, and it's not going to be as big of a deal if you're overeating in a muscle gain phase as opposed to a fat loss or minimizing fat regain phase. I think a lot of people coming up to this point are probably, especially competitors, if you're ending out your competition season, you're low metabolic rate, you're kind of focused on recovering but minimizing fat regain. A lot of people have kind of dieted throughout the summer, and this kind of marks the end of their diet phase. But they've done studies that show quite a few people gain on average around 10 pounds during the holidays. Now think about if you just spent so much time dieting, losing 10 to 15 pounds, and you put it all back on in a 2-month time period because you have Thanksgiving, and then you have the Christmas season, and then you have New Year's, and there's usually a lot of parties associated with this, and there's going to be a lot of eating out, a lot of high calorie dense foods available for you. The first thing is, what goal are we at? If we're in a fat loss phase, then maybe one of the things we can do is have flexible, higher calorie days. Okay, so I've talked about in my book, The Complete Contest Prep Guide, and in my upcoming book, Fat Loss Forever, I talk about higher calorie days or diet breaks and refeeds. Well, if you have, for example, 2 days a week that are higher calorie, and the other 5 days are kind of your normal, what I will usually do during the holidays is make those 2 days not set days and have them floating. So if you know that you've got a party coming up on, say, a Friday, some kind of holiday party, well then you can save one of your high carb days, or sorry, your high calorie days for that party. So that way it'll make it easier to adhere to, you've got a little bit more flexibility. If you're doing a diet break, so I talk a lot about doing 2 to 4 weeks of dieting followed by 1 to 2 weeks of diet break. Diet break is eating at maintenance. Well, obviously, if you could time your diet breaks to be during those holiday times, so for example, maybe you go on a diet break during the week of Thanksgiving, and then you keep dieting after that, and then you do another diet break as the Christmas week comes up. So those are some of the strategies you can do with kind of non-linear dieting. If you're going to try and keep on kind of a fat loss or maintenance program during these holiday times, then there's a few different strategies you can implement as well to try to improve your adherence. One is obviously tracking at doing IIFYM. Okay? Obviously, a lot of the foods that are at these parties and such, or family gatherings, are going to be very calorie dense. So it's going to be hard to hit your macros eating a lot of these foods. So what I recommend doing is actually a little bit of a form of intermittent fasting. Now, it's not traditional intermittent fasting, and it's not really even fasting at all. It's just kind of time-restricted eating. If you know you have your big Thanksgiving day at, say, 4 p.m. or 5 p.m., well, then I wouldn't really eat much before that. Because now, if you've got, say, 1,800 calories to budget, and you can limit yourself to 300 calories before you go to the party, you've got 1,500 calories to play with. That allows you to have a nice big meal, enjoy yourself, not have to feel overly restricted, but still hit your daily calorie goal. Now, one of the problems a lot of people get into is when they start, they can't seem to stop. And so one of the things you could say is, well, I'm going to allow myself 1 full plate of food, okay? And you try to estimate what's in that plate as best you can. A lot of people get worried because they feel like, well, if I can't track perfectly, what's the point? But that's not true at all. Being consistent is much more important than being perfect. And so even if you're trying to track, if you're off by 20%, it's still better than saying, fuck it, and going YOLO. Now, that brings me to another strategy. If you're tracking and you're attempting to track, if your goal is fat loss or minimizing fat regain, then you're better off overestimating what you think is in the food. So I'll tell people, if you think something had 30 grams of protein, 50 grams of carbs, and 20 grams of fat, overestimate by 20%. So instead of 50 grams of carbs, you could add an extra 20% to that. So you call it 60. Instead of 20 grams of fat, add an extra 20%. Make it 24, 25 grams of fat. So you're building in some shimmies or some allowances for errors in tracking. And hey, if you overestimate, great, because you'll end up losing a little bit of weight or at least maintaining. But I really like this kind of time-restricted eating where you're kind of just eating protein early in the day, and then when you go to a party or whatnot, you allow yourself to have carbohydrates and fats. Is it perfect? No, but it gives you more flexibility. The other thing I want to talk about is activity. A lot of people get really inactive during the holidays. I live in Florida, so it's not as big of a deal. It's still plenty warm here. But if you're up in northern states where it's very cold outside, people tend to stay indoors, people tend to be less active. And especially on a holiday like Thanksgiving or Christmas, a lot of times you're spending around with your family, eating, talking, playing games, drinking. Try to keep your activity up. Get into the gym. Now I know in holidays a lot of gym schedules can be irregular. So plan ahead. Try to find out, hey, when is my gym going to be open? Is it going to be open on Thanksgiving? Is it going to be open on Christmas? And if it's not, try to plan something else to do. Go out for a nice long walk. Maybe go try and do something active. Go for a hike. Go for a bike ride. Sometimes, for example, if you're in Minnesota or someplace like that where it's extremely cold, that can be really difficult to do. You could even get, say, a jump rope in your garage. I mean, as weird as it sounds, these are ways to keep your activity up. Right down to if you're stuck in the house, if you watch TV, watch it standing up. Don't lay on the couch. Make yourself burn a little bit more calories by having to support your body weight. As weird as it sounds, that actually contributes a significant amount of energy expenditure each day for our caloric expenditure. So try to keep your activity up. If you're having more calories, use those calories. If your gym's open, get in the gym and train hard. I think probably better to go in before the big meal than after. Might not feel so good after. But all these are strategies that can help you stick to it. At the end of the day, you need to make a decision about what is most important to you. If your physique goals and your weight loss goals are more important to you than eating the food and feeling like part of the gathering, that's okay. You just have to understand that you're going to have to sacrifice more of that food, and you're going to have people possibly look at you weird and ask you questions and all that kind of stuff. Doesn't make it wrong, it just means that it's one of your sacrifices you have to make. If you want to enjoy food more, that's okay too. Just understand that that may come with some weight gain associated with it, unless you're being pretty diligent with tracking time-restricted eating and keeping your activity up. Overall, hopefully this has given you some strategies to help feel less anxiety about the holidays. There are plenty of people who go through the holidays and maintain their weight just fine. Just don't eat like an asshole. And for example, it's not like if you have a really bad day, you've completely blown it, all right? If you had planned everything out, you were going to track and everything, and then you got to Thanksgiving Day dinner, and you had the whole dinner, and you said you were going to have one plate, and you had one plate, and then you went back and had half of a pecan pie, and you overshot your calories by 2,000, well, I mean, you made it tough, but guess what? You can always just decrease your calories by 500 calories per day for the next 5 days, or something like that, or next 4 days rather. You can always just decrease your calories by 400 calories over the next 5 days if you overshot by 2,000, so that you can even things back out. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, I wouldn't recommend going in with that as a goal, but one thing you can do is on the day before and the day after, say at Thanksgiving or Christmas, you can undereat by 20-30% on the day before and then the day after, and allow yourself to have, 30, 40 more % calories, so long as they even out across those 3 days. That's another strategy that you can use. But if you're someone who thrives on structure, and I've met some people like this who actually have lower adherence on higher calorie days, then maybe you just keep them the same. What works is going to be individual for you, and you should try out different strategies and see what works for you. Alright guys, I hope this has been helpful. If you like the video, hit subscribe, check out my books on the links below, as well as the clothing. We're having a big sale for Black Friday, and you can get everything. The Workout Builder, my ebooks, Holly's ebooks, everything for 20% off. Check the description for the code, buy some shit, and even if you don't, I appreciate you watching. Catch you next time.